Okay, so again, my name is Marek. I'm honored to host the webinar today. I'm leading Knox Partner Program for Europe, representing HQ this time. Together with me, there is Peter McColgan and Trami Neugen. They are supporting me in technical part of the discussion. Actually, Peter is the global owner for, together with Tammy, they own the product, so they are the best experts we have in Samsung. Okay, few rules at the very beginning. Please be muted at all time. We would like, of course, the webinar is being recorded, therefore we cannot interrupt in the middle of the presentation. So I would suggest that if there will be any questions, please use the chat window to ask those. And at the very end of the webinar, we will get back to those questions and our experts will give you the answers right away. Okay, so let's move on, and I will share a little bit about the agenda. So at the beginning, I will share some insights on the Knox Partner Program. What is it? What's changed from the recent partnership program we had? What is Knox validated will follow. And after the short intro about the program itself, we're going to move to the technical discussion about KME, and I will give the voice to Peter. So you will get all the new stuff about KME from Peter. Okay, moving on. So Knox Partner Program. Basically, Knox Partner Program is an evolution of Samsung Enterprise Alliance program we had before. Samsung Enterprise Alliance program was probably most of you were a part of it. So it was a program to dedicated for sharing knowledge with all those vendors who wanted to use our APIs, who wanted to get some documentations, who wanted to reach out to Samsung experts, get a contact point, or share some insights with us about our products. But basically, we wanted to move into the more B2B direction. So the evolution of SEP, it's no longer a knowledge sharing and documentation sharing portal. It's a little bit more. So now we support the integration. So you get to know the experts to lead you through the implementation of APIs. You can go with all of those fun stuff, technologies that we have in Samsung, and try to integrate as much as you can if they have any use for you and your solution. So we're not only talking about like regular use cases. We're doing encryption, we're doing some text integration, so on and so forth. But aside of the technical part, we also plan the go-to-market, and our sales teams are willing to support the result of the integration in terms of addressing the market together with Samsung. So not only integration, but also getting to the markets together and growing in terms of numbers and sales. So within that group of partnerships that we developed together, we have a special place for NDMs, UEMs, EMMs, whatever you want to call yourselves these days. And that place is the Knox Validated program. For Knox Validated, basically, the most important part is to certify partnerships. This certification is basically giving the feedback to the customers that the MDM is or EMM, UEM is certified to be used with Samsung devices, and which is probably as important, the Knox platform itself. So this year we're gonna keep it quite simple. Probably the requirements of KVP will grow with next years. So today, to get to Knox validated certification, you would have to be registered in Knox Partner Program. This is obvious. Also, you have to be at least a silver level partner. So this means that you're integrated. If you're an MDM, most likely you already are. Of course, there are several technical requirements that you have to meet. We have a special team to test those, and as they troubleshoot, they will give you some feedback if something goes wrong. you will have the time, of course, to fix it. There are no limits in terms of approaching the validation process, so you can try until you succeed. Of course, with reasonable, say, timing and effort on our side. Also, what we are focusing on now in terms of the integration, the validation process is KSP, which is Knox Service Plugin, and KME. That's why we're talking about Knox Validated today, because you can have your Knox validation if you know KME and you have proper implementation of KME on your solution. After you get the validation, all those mandatory features will be checked and approved, then you will have that validation certificate valid for 1 year. Probably next year would require additional APIs and features to be implemented, but it's, I think, good for both sides to grow together. So the values, of course, there's going to be a list of validated partners shown on the web portal on our websites. Also, you will get to be visible in the KME drop-down list as a validated partner. Of course, a lot of our B2B teams and salespeople will basically look for a partner who is validated, because this makes it easier for them to sell. It makes reasonable connection with the customer that you're gonna push the validated product first. Of course, you get the logo, you get the certification, and you get to be promoted by Samsung. Okay, so at the end of the discussion today, after we do the Q&As, I will share my email address for all those who want to be validated. Please write an email to me, and I will share with you the how to start the process and to be validated. Okay, it's time for the technical part now. So I will share voice to Peter. So Peter, take over, please. Thank you again.
Okay, just let me know.
Yeah, please.
Oh yeah, okay. I just want to make sure everyone could hear me.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Peter McColgan. I'm a product manager for Knox Mobile Enrollment. Been working at Samsung a couple of years, both on Knox Mobile Enrollment, but also on a sister product called the Knox Deployment Program, which is a program offered to resellers. And I'm going to be giving this session together with my colleague, Trami, and she can introduce herself. She's more on the supporting side, I'm a PM, she's more on the technical supporting side. So what I'm going to do is take you through KME, why people use KME, some of the new features of KME, and then some of the stuff that's coming up in the future later this year. Okay, next slide, please. So this is, I have a couple of slides on why customers use KME. I think you probably know that if end users have to set up a device on their own, it's very problematic. And that's the headache fellow in the middle. You can see there's a number of steps and a number of places where people can get stuck, get blocked, have trouble. And KME is just out-of-box bulk enrollment mechanism where it's basically devices are associated with a particular profile that you've created. And when the device is turned on out of the box, that device can basically reach back to our cloud. It will be identified, the profile will be pulled down, and the device will enroll. So it's a very seamless, very easy to use experience. Okay, next slide, please. So here's a couple of the concrete reasons, having talked to customers over the years, that I see why people use KME. So we have this, I call it leveraged enrollment ecosystem. So basically we have resellers that work closely with customers, that work closely with EMMs, and they all work together seamlessly. So really, from a customer's perspective, the inputting of IMEIs of device information comes automatically, flows through from resellers. And also the customer, when it comes to enrolling those devices, automatically will get the right profile and the right EMM APK server URI from the EMM side. So basically KME and our KDP program work together seamlessly along with the EMMs. The out-of-the-box enrollment I mentioned before is something we've really simplified. Really just, you turn on the device, you go through a couple of different screens after accepting the terms and conditions, privacy policy, and then in about 6 to 9 touches on the screen, you have an enrolled device. Even after you do a factory reset, enrollment can continue on the device. So it doesn't matter that people will try and remove your EMM. We continue to have that device enrolled because that device is still associated on our back end with a profile. And that profile is associated with your EMM. FRP bypass is kind of the mirror of the factory reset enrollment. So as you know, it has been mandated in many countries to prevent phone theft, that the phones are protected against being used by some unauthorized person. So if you have a Google account associated with the phone, then when you reset the phone, it will ask you for the Google account. So the problem there is that if someone leaves the company and don't unlock the phone, and you have a phone, it's going to be asking for the end user's Google login credentials. If you don't know those, you can't actually get past that screen. So KME actually has a mechanism to avoid this. So you can actually take a device otherwise would be useless because of the FRP lock, and you can actually use that device inside your enterprise. And then one of the final reasons is when you come to enroll devices, as I showed in an earlier slide, there's multiple screens you have to go through. We call these the setup. Samsung has a bunch, Google has a bunch, carrier, especially in the US, where you often buy a device associated with a carrier. There's a lot of screens you have to go through. And basically those screens are almost all skipped. There's a couple of Samsung screens, and for doing enrollment into an EMM, there's 1 or 2 Google screens, but for the majority of screens, they are not shown. So it makes for a much smoother, simpler experience for the end user. Okay, next slide, please. So this is a slide I put together to try and show that KME has many different enrollment mechanisms, different methods of enrollment, depending on customers' individual circumstances. So the primary use case is the top left-hand corner, bulk enrollment, where devices are uploaded by reseller. So that's kind of a primary use case. We see the majority of devices being enrolled using that mechanism. But there's many other different mechanisms. If you look down the columns, you'll see QR code enrollment, which is something that we introduced recently for Android 10. So basically you generate a QR code inside KME, and that QR code can be used to trigger enrollment. And then we have a companion product that works with KME called the Knox deployment app. That runs on a separate device. And the Knox deployment app basically is a device in which you log in with your credentials, and you can pair it with a target device to enroll on the target device. And we have a couple of different methods of pairing. We have Bluetooth, we have Wi-Fi direct, and we have NFC as well. So this is an enrollment method that's actually doesn't involve a reseller. So if you want to just take a device and enroll it into KME, you don't have to use a reseller. So we have the QR code and the different KDA mechanisms that are available for customers to do. And then if you look down the rows, we have, besides the bulk enrollment, some of these they're not completely exclusive. For example, some of these rows actually also apply to each other. So some overlap between these options. So if you're on a slow network, so some customers have slow Wi-Fi, they have a slow internet, but primarily the Wi-Fi side on the intranet. You can actually use an Ethernet cable to help enrollment. We actually introduced the capability of enrolling to an EMM that's hosted on-prem. So KME, as you probably know, is a cloud-based product, but some customers want an on-prem solution. And this is our first step in that direction, whereby the APK or the EMM can be hosted behind the firewall. On the next one, the secure enrollment for Android 10. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But basically, you can enroll using a MAC whitelisted address. I'll talk about that in an upcoming slide. With Bluetooth, you can do simultaneous device enrollments. That's the advantage. The disadvantage is that Bluetooth is not very fast. And then I mentioned about no resale upload needed. Single device needed. With QR code, you just need the target device and you have to scan the QR code. And inside that QR code is the profile ID and optional Wi-Fi credentials to connect you to the network in order to do your enrollment. And then finally, we have Wi-Fi credential passing. So QR code and Bluetooth and Wi-Fi Direct will allow you to pass Wi-Fi credentials. Okay, next slide, please. So some of the recent new features, this webinar is not an introduction to KME. There's a lot of stuff about KME. We have really good documentation on our website. It's a free product, so you can sign up and you can use it for free. You can play around with it if you want to learn how it works. So I just want to introduce some of the new features that we've introduced in the past few months. So I mentioned before QR code enrollment. So this is a mechanism whereby you have a single target device that doesn't need a reseller involvement. You generate the QR code inside the portal. QR code has information you need to trigger the enrollment. The next one I hinted at in the previous table when I mentioned more secure enrollment. This is something that several customers have recently requested thanks to the introduction of Android 10. In Android 10, as you may know, when you connect a Wi-Fi network, the default option is using a randomized MAC address. And the reason Google introduced that was for privacy reasons. So people couldn't be tracked when they moved from one SSID to another SSID using the same MAC address. It can be overridden by an end user through the menu options, but customers want to do this automatically. So what we have done through our QR code-based enrollment is allowed customers to basically turn off the randomization and use the device MAC address. The reason that is useful is based on this sub-bullet point. The MAC address on its own, the device MAC address, isn't that interesting. But if you can get a hold of it easily and you can whitelist that MAC address, you can allow those devices and only those devices to enroll into your network. So we get MAC addresses from the factory. So when devices are made, they have associated MAC address. We actually pull those MAC addresses from the factory. And when devices are uploaded by the reseller, they're put into our cloud database. And when those devices are in turn uploaded by a reseller to a customer, then those customers will actually be able to see those device MAC address in a table, in our CSV table. So what a customer can do is take those MAC addresses and they can upload those, download those MAC addresses and have those listed in their router. So when those devices turn on, the profile setting is basically to enroll just using that device MAC address, which has already been previously whitelisted. Another feature we introduced maybe 2 months ago is for customers who have a trusted relationship with resellers. The resellers can upload directly into a profile. So the way it worked previously would be each reseller had one rule associated with them. So all the uploads from a particular reseller could be associated with a single profile. Or the customer could manually take uploads and devices and manually bulk assign those selected devices to a profile. But with this new feature, which is available both through our reseller portal and very shortly our Knox deployment APIs, the reseller can basically get a list of profiles, we call them profile aliases, that is shared with the shared by the customer to the reseller. And when the reseller wants to upload devices, they can go ahead and pick into which profile they want those devices to be uploaded. We don't share the actual profile names because those might be internal to the customer. We share a thing called a profile alias, which is a one-to-one mapping with the profile name. And then finally, this is a new feature we're actually introducing tomorrow. So I'll give you a quick heads up. We're planning a release tomorrow, but it's a very important feature, especially in the government sector. So this is a feature that allows KME to install root and intermediate certificates. Public certificates can be installed by KME. So look out, that feature is coming out tomorrow. And it's going to basically be used primarily by government agencies or people who want to connect back to servers in a very secure environment. We find that some certificates, not every certificate the customer needs is on the Samsung or any Android phone. So there's just as a way of getting these certificates on the device in a trusted manner through KME. Okay, so next slide, please, Mark. So this is a slide Trami will explain. Trami, you want to take it away, please?
Yeah, so I can explain what is actually needed for partners to support KME and an overview of how your EMM agent will actually interact with KME. So to start off, we have two minimum requirements from partners. The first requirement is that we require partners to already support Google device provisioning. Whether it's the QR code to provision a device into fully managed mode or some form of that. So the reason behind this is for partners that already support this, they will need to make little to no changes on their side to do that additional step of supporting KME. What actually happens on the device is the KME agent will act as a messenger between the profiles that have been configured on the KME server. So the profiles on the KME server will be associated to a specific device ID, and it will pull that profile down from the server onto the device via the agent, the KME agent on the device, and it will pass that to the Google provisioning manager. And what actually happens afterwards is the Google provisioning manager, because it's configuring the device into fully managed mode or device owner mode, is it will act as the interface between KME and the EMM agent. So the Google device provisioning manager will actually install, download and install the app, as well as pass the bundle of information that's sent from KME to the agent. So the KME agent will not be interacting directly with your EMM agent. It will just act as I said, the messenger. So what this means is that from your EMM side, you don't need to add any additional code to actually interact with the EMM agent if you just wanted to do a base enrollment load. But with KME, we do support assigning and provisioning device-specific details like user credentials or to being able to assign a profile to a bulk of devices. You can then pass specific information that is only supposed to be passed to a specific device ID. You can use KME to provision that information to kind of remove more steps that end user will need to do, like entering the enrollment token on the device to actually complete the enrollment. To support these additional fields, this is where additional integration work will be needed because on your EMM agent side, it will need to listen or keep track of these fields, these values that we will pass assigned to certain keys. And these keys will give you the specific IDs of these keys when you're going through the Knox validation process. But it's about 2 or 3 different keys that you could use to pass more information than just the profile information through the device. And the second requirement that we need from partners is a direct download link to their agent. So this link will be passed to the device, so then it can then download and install the agent directly. We prefer that you use a link that's hosted by the Managed Play Store versus a link hosted directly by your own server or through different means. In our experience, we find that the Managed Play Store link has a better end user experience. There's less likely chances of having any delays or timeouts because the server's too far or the connection is not the greatest between the device and the server where the APK is hosted, especially for APKs of larger sizes. And then once that is done, then so for these requirements, we just need you to kind of share this information to us through the Knox validation program and to get added as a support partner. So I'll pass it back to Peter to talk about the next steps.
Okay, Marek, can you advance the slide, please? Okay, so we mentioned about why customers would like to use KME. We mentioned some of the features. Trami talked about some of the technology behind integration and what's possible. This slide is basically talking about some KME features that we're going to be working on through the remainder of this year. Google have introduced an Android 10 out-of-the-box work profile support for primarily targeted at personal devices. So later on this year, we plan to support out-of-the-box work profile support. In KME right now, we support 2 kinds of enrollment. We support legacy device admin-based enrollment, and we also support Android enterprise device owner-based enrollment. And if you go into the website for KME and you try and create a profile, you'll be given the choice. There are some issues with device admin. I'll mention, and you can see a reference to note at the bottom. So this program is really just for Android enterprise-based enrollment. We're not really that interested in continuing to bring on new EMM partners for legacy device admin, which Google has announced is going away. And they've basically been telling their EMM partners that it's something that they shouldn't be promoting or supporting going forward. So we have out-of-the-box work profile support, primarily targeted at personal use, but also can be used for corporate liable company-owned devices as well. Next thing is the on-prem APK hosting. So I mentioned in the table that we had this as a beta. We're actually going to bring it out of beta and make it more public. We're going to launch it with some more customer education. So this basically, there's 2 different modes this can be used. One is the EMM APK can be hosted behind the firewall, but there's another flavor of the APK hosted publicly. So basically, this is for speeding up enrollment if you have a slow internet. So if you have a slow internet, the biggest component enrollment, the biggest time sink is basically downloading the EMM APK typically. In some cases, that can be 60 megabytes or more. And if you have a slow network, internet network, or it's being overloaded, that's not something that, for every device, it's going to add up and take a lot of time. So we're allowing that to be hosted internally. So That's for the use case of speeding things up. There's also a use case where you have a private EMM APK, and we also support that, but that APK is not publicly available. And then the third bullet here is Android 11 changes. So as you can imagine, with every version of Android, there's going to be some changes, starting with legal language changes. So Android 11 is focused a lot on user privacy and user awareness of what's going on the device. So there's going to be some changes on the language during our enrollment. Where this slide is slightly incorrect. The deprecation of NFC is actually not exactly correct. So it's NFC enrollment. So we're not deprecating NFC as part of KME. It's deprecation of NFC-based enrollment. So that was one of the 3 different enrollment methods I mentioned using the Knox deployment app. And the reason for that is Android Beam was deprecated by Google in Android 10, but they allowed each OEM to decide if they want to continue to support it. And Samsung decided to support it for one more Android version, Android 10. But with Android 11, we are no longer going to be supporting NFC as an enrollment type from Android 11 onwards. And the final bullet point is this strange looking acronym. If anyone attended the Android Enterprise Summit, you'd have seen some presentations on this. This is Work Profile for Corporate-Owned Devices, WPCOD, which is a form of a work profile creation for company-owned devices, out-of-the-box work profile creation for company-owned devices. There's an Android 10 flavor, which is targeted more on personal devices. And then there's the company-owned device flavor, which is not something an end user can remove. Whereas the Android 10 version is something the work profile could be removed by the end user. So WPCOD is a little bit closer to the DO device owner, but it's not a fully managed device. It still has it just has a work profile for your work profile information. So if you want more information on the differences between the Android 10, Android 11, work profile creation, Google's planning to post sometime in early July, a blog post that will go into a lot of detail explaining the Android 11 changes, including the WPCOD support. And then the final note is in Android, I mentioned this earlier, in Android 11, we're going to stop supporting legacy device admins. So we're going to continue supporting device admins through Android 10, but from Android 11, if you try and enroll a device using a device admin profile, it will fail. So the reason for that is that, as I mentioned earlier, there's a strong push towards Android Enterprise, which came out about 1.5 years maybe ago, maybe 2 years ago. And we've been seeing more and more customers move in that direction. And we kind of feel we need to give somewhat of a nudge to some of our customers to move them across to the latest technology. Device admin has some issues with it, some loopholes that some have been exploited. Some of that is stuff we generally fix straight away, but it's not as secure a mechanism of enrollment as device owner. So we really want everyone to move to device owner. We continue to support device admin, however, up through Android 10, and we continue to maintain it. But if there are any new features, and we've introduced a bunch of new features, like a dual DAR support, I mentioned before, root and intermediate certificate installation, turning off the MAC randomization through a profile setting. All this new stuff that's coming out is all in device owner mode, Android Enterprise only. We haven't really added any new features into device admin for a couple of years now. So we really want customers to take full advantage of our Android Enterprise going forward. So I think that might be the last slide from me, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Peter. That was very good, very good. So I haven't seen
Oh,
any.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. One quick thing. There was one slide
sure.
that I didn't see here, which was I had a graphic slide to show how the EMM would show up in the KME profile creation screens. So you'd indicated that once you're approved as a Knox partner, then a couple of things are going to happen. One is you would be shown on a marketing page as being approved, but another is inside the KME profile creation. We have a screen whereby when you create the profile, there's actually a selection you can make to pick the EMM. And when you pick the EMM, we pre-populate the, this is the one, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
That's, this one here. Yeah, so if you can jump back one slide, I can show the context for this.
just a second.
Okay, sure.
I need to swap the screens, and
Okay. If you go to number
here you
one,
go.
that'd be great. Okay, so I mentioned before, when you create a profile, you can pick between device owner and device admin. If you pick device owner, then you basically fill out the details. So let's go to the next screen. This is from a customer perspective. And then basically you pick the partner called pick your MDM. And this is an example of, here's Knox Manage, and it pre-populates the MDM agent APK. So instead of customers having to figure out where to get the APK from, we pre-populate it for you, for the customer. And this is the drop-down list of currently supported partners. And when you go through the validation program and are approved, your name would be added here. So when customers pick your name, your agent APK will be pre-populated in this field here, just to make things a lot easier for your customers. Okay, I think that's it. I don't think I have a third one for this. Well, here I do. And then this is the device owner profile screen. It's like QR code enrollment. The difference between the way we create a profile and the way maybe Google might do theirs on Zero Touch, we tend to be more UI friendly. So we have a lot of options that we expose through a UI, and we have a lot of helper text. So wherever possible, we like to give helper text on profile creation to explain to customers what some of these capabilities mean. So like a dual DAR, for example, or the QR code, the certificate installation. So we make it as user-friendly as possible for customers to create profiles, because we realize this is the most complicated part of setting up the devices from a point of view of a configuration, is creating these particular profiles. And we just want to make it as easy as possible. And then ideally, when a customer has created the profile and they have a trusted reseller, then the customer can step back, the reseller uploads devices to the customer, and those devices are automatically assigned a profile. So the whole thing could be completely automated once you set up your individual profiles inside this this KME profile creation screen. Okay, so I think that's it from me, Mike, on this. Okay, thank you for jumping into the slides.
Sorry for missing those on the
Oh, no
original
problem.
one. So thanks, Peter. That was very interesting, very good. I haven't seen any questions on the chat. We have a Q&A now. So if anybody wants to ask a question about KME to Peter or Trami, this is the time, please. Okay, we see one question here. Will Samsung devices running Android 11 still be able to legacy enroll into an MDM if they do not enroll via KME?
So each MDM is taking, it depends who the MDM is. Some MDMs have stopped support already for legacy device admin mode. I believe AirWatch has stopped support, and a couple others are indicating they will stop supporting device admin. So I think the best thing to do is to reach out to the individual MDMs and ask if they're going to be supporting. and what type of support. Are they going to be supporting, brand new enrollments out of the box, or are they going to be supporting if a device gets upgraded from Android 10 to Android 11 through an over-the-air update? Will the MDM continue to function on Android 11? So the AirWatch case I mentioned is out of the box. I don't believe they're supporting Android 11 out of the box, but I think it's MDM to get their individual positions on Android 11 upgrade. Hopefully that answers the question. Okay, thank you.
We have another one. Any plans to change the branding in the KME UI?
Yes. So we're changing it to UEM Workspace 1 in July. So it's not going to be VMware. Actually, capital V is very tricky. This AirWatch is Air with a capital W, and VMware is VM small w, capital V, capital M. We're changing the name of AirWatch, yes, to UEM Workspace 1, as per their request, by the way. To let them know about this upcoming change, so they don't freak out when suddenly AirWatch disappears from the dropdown. And that answers the question. Okay. Thank you.
So, there's another one. Is it possible to auto-populate the available fields in the JSON box?
That's a really good question. At this point, it's not possible. If there's a strong, I can see some use cases where it'd be quite handy. Generally, the MDM documentation, because there's so many different the box and the values can change, then the documentation is really the place to go. If we felt there was a set of JSON that was used very, very frequently, what we'd probably do is put it in a UI setting. So like keep system apps enabled. So this is something that you can pass through JSON, but we actually put it in the UI. So if it's something that's frequently used, and obviously after this session, if you feel you have a use case for a particular request, pass it along. Maybe Marek, you can take some questions, requests, and we'll definitely look into it. So it's a good question. Right now, it's not possible, but we're definitely open to those kind of ideas right now. Okay.
So we have another one. We have about 700 devices that, even after deletion, do not receive the KME profile. Is it possible to deal directly with you and and not with the local Samsung branch? What is it about the local Samsung brand? They are good people. Deal with them. They will support you.
Was that a comment or a question?
That was a comment, actually.
Oh, okay.
If there's an issue, well, basically you can share with me, but I don't think Peter is gonna be the direct touch for every case.
So yeah, I can't support all our customers. So the problem was that devices are deleted from. I still didn't understand the question or the problem. We probably can't debug it on the call, but in general, you remove a device KME, it's no longer enrolled in KME, then it should work and you do a reset on the device, it should work as a regular B2C device. As you know, Samsung devices that we use for enterprise, for consumer. And the thing that causes it to turn into an enterprise device happens in the first few seconds when this is for the out-of-box experience. You have a couple of seconds in which it reaches back to see, is this device associated with an enterprise or not? That's typically how it would work. There are other ways it would work through QR code or KDA, But yeah, when you delete devices, it should convert back to a regular BDC device.
Okay, I just shared my email address for those who want to try to be validated. You can reach out to me and we can, let's say, follow up on the process of validation. So if there are any questions, well,
So
should we ask right now?
yeah, Marek, one more thing I just want to mention is the I don't know if you remember, there was in the drop-down list there was a bunch of EMM names, and at the bottom there was one called Other. Other's how you go ahead and validate your URL APK, so your APK. So basically, Other is you can basically free form. You can put any APK in there that you'd like. So you could have a test APK, and you could pick that and test it through the Other setting. So we basically through Other we do support the capability of adding any arbitrary APK. But what we don't want to do is encourage customers to have to go to Other and manually type in the APK URL. Really want every customer who has uses KME to have the best experience possible, which is basically picking the particular APK for that particular EMM partner. Now, I mentioned also the fact we support on-prem, and I said if there's two kinds of on-prem APK support. One is for behind the firewall for speed. So basically, it's a public available APK, but you want to use it because it's going to speed up your whole enrollment on device. That was one. The second one was private APK. So we do also support, as I mentioned, private APK. So when a customer goes ahead and chooses a particular EMM partner, we suggest that link. That link is actually editable. So it's an editable link. So for example, let's pick a Knox Manage. And the example we showed, Knox Manage, shows up as a URL, but that's the editable field. So if you have an instance of Knox Manage on-prem, then you can go ahead and edit that particular APK to match your internal network address. Just a little additional information. Okay, thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Peter, for the comment. And since there are no more questions, and this is the last time to ask them, okay, it seems that we have reached the end. Thank you, everyone, for participating, for the questions. Peter, Trami, thank you for leading the technical part.
And thank you.